What are we down to?
Welcome back to Cambridge Inside and Out.
All right. And I'm Robert Winters, even
Yep.
still. All
Yeah,
right.
me too. I mean, I'm Judith Nathans. I'm not you.
All right.
But
So in the
okay.
last half hour, we talked a lot about national elections. So
National, right?
no more.
No
Okay.
more. No
That's
civil
it.
wars. Nothing.
That's it.
No,
That's
that's
right.
it.
Peace and love, you
Yeah,
know?
right. Yeah.
So now, but the thing is that there were some local elections, never, in terms of who was elected, that's not interesting, and it never is in Massachusetts.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's on non-competitive elections. We don't do competitive elections in Massachusetts at all. But there were two ballot questions. One had to do with right to repair, which is, and apparently there was already something in effect, but this was a revision to that.
Right.
And that passed, and I expected it would. But then there was also the ballot question on ranked choice voting.
Very disappointing.
And I fully expected that was going to pass.
Yeah.
I guess I believed, like every other fool in the country, I believed the polls, right?
Yeah.
And the polling said that it had the votes.
I didn't know. I didn't see the polling.
Yeah. But it ended up going down it lost by a comfortable
55,
margin.
45, something like that.
Yeah. And, I find that kind of disappointing. I do hope that the idea carries on. There's nothing stopping the state legislature from considering other kinds of voting systems, and there's nothing stopping citizenry from pushing this again down the road a couple of years.
Yeah, but that was a big
But it's a big deal, and it's not cheap to run initiative petition campaigns. But I hope that enough people got the idea in their head that there'll be some consensus that maybe this is still an idea worth pursuing.
I was just so surprised, given, I don't know how many people paid attention to, but the 4th congressional district race where there were 10 candidates and the winning candidate, Jake Auchincloss, got 22% of the vote. If it had been a ranked choice, it would have been a different outlook, or maybe a runoff.
It would not necessarily have given a different
no, but it might have been a runoff.
But it might have been.
Yeah.
Certainly, the candidate who many people expected to win, who didn't win,
I know.
Right, is very and then became very outspoken supporter of ranked choice voting, of course.
Yeah.
But the thing is that people, I think a lot of people, including people who are advocates for ranked choice voting, completely misunderstand certain important aspects about how actual human beings really vote. Meaning they don't just vote based on the fact that you've decided that these are the ideological lines and therefore that's how everybody's going to vote. No. A lot of people vote geographically. A lot of people vote based on every imaginable criteria. So you can never say, oh, well, if we had ranked choice voting, then the voters, the ballots for these people who lost would have transferred to elect so-and-so. You really can't know that unless you look at the ballot data.
I know.
And there was no ballot data because there was no ranked choice voting.
But there was a lot of ads put on by the no people that kind of.
I think it had
bad.
Yeah, but the way I look at this has to do with just generally about referenda and initiative petitions. Namely, this is that your typical voter who doesn't fully understand a ballot question.
Yeah.
The default is usually that they
don't vote on it.
Well, they either leave it blank or you go, I don't know about this. And if
they don't vote on it, then you're losing that vote. That's true.
Right. But the thing is that they'll often vote no because they're rather, better the devil you know, right?
I see what you're saying.
Like, I don't know, what's wrong with the way we do it now, they think, right? Well, there's a lot wrong, but I have to explain it to you. And
that's true.
And I guess I assumed that there was enough explanation put out there, and I don't think there was in the end, you know? So, live and learn, right? It's not the end of the world. But I do hope the idea carries on and that, there is still ideas like having state enabling legislation to allow cities and towns in Massachusetts to adopt alternate voting systems without going through a whole full-blown charter change process. There are some things that people can do here.
Yeah.
And there are some places, like I'm sure Somerville, if given a choice, might actually choose a different system.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll start using the Cambridge system. I don't know. But the thing is at least to put the options out there. So anyway, so this was sort of the first campaign, and it will probably go on for another 20 years. So we'll see. Anyway, that was kind of interesting. Now, back at Cambridge, there is a little bit of a problem we have right now having to do with the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Um, you know, everybody, remember when we were all going crazy, and certainly I was crazy back in April, and we were living in fear and looking at the skyrocketing numbers, and then the numbers subsided, and you remember we all talked about ventilators and whatever,
Mm.
nobody seems to talk about a lot of those things now, but the numbers subsided so that the number of new cases was averaging like 3.5, 4. I was staying pretty consistently under 5 in Cambridge throughout the entire summer. Last 2 weeks, it's been over 20. There's one day it's up to 33.
Okay, so I'm going to throw out something that sounds very Trumpian, but we are doing a whole lot more testing of the public.
Yes.
So chances are you're going to catch more cases than you might have done in August.
There's no question at all that that's part of it. Let me actually, just so people will know about this,
yeah.
I'm going to actually throw a little
yeah,
bit
put
of
on,
just a little bit of a graphic here, just so
right.
people understand. The
Okay.
thing is that arguably things were growing more or less linearly, or not
Yep.
linearly, they were growing at a constant rate,
Right.
like,
Right.
5 here, 5 there. And then something happened a couple of weeks ago where
All right, wait
suddenly,
a minute. You have to say that you started in October. This is
right,
not
the thing
the
is this,
beginning.
I've just
Okay.
chopped out a section. I'll show you another graph in a second here,
Okay.
but basically
This
things
is
were just,
October.
the
Yeah.
total cumulative numbers here, it was
Okay.
over 1,400, and it
Okay.
had grown kind of steadily, but not rapidly. And then at some point 2 weeks
What?
ago, it just
Yeah.
started growing. I would
Interesting.
still say it's growing kind of steadily as opposed to
Yeah.
exponentially, but
Yeah.
we'll see what happens next week, right? It could start leveling off again. We don't know. And a more interesting graph to me is this
So
one
this is
here
from the beginning.
about the 7-day averages. And you can see
Okay.
where the peaks were,
Yeah.
number of new cases up around, peaking up around 25. There was a few days where it really went crazy, which is, I think, when they instituted a lot of new testing.
So where are you
And
looking now?
uh,
Point on the map, because right now
right, the
but
early
that's
peak,
April. That's April.
right. But
Okay.
what except for that sort of anomalous spike there, it was sort of, it
Yes.
rose and
Yes.
it came down, and then it
But
was
that was
sitting
the
here.
highest everywhere in the state
Yeah,
too. That was
right,
everywhere. Yeah.
right. And when you look at this stuff nationally, what you're really seeing there is a
Yeah.
story of a peak that happened in places like New York and Massachusetts, which
Right.
then subsided.
Northeast.
And
That's
then
right.
there were some
New
peaks in
Jersey.
places
Yeah.
like Arizona and Florida, which peaked
Right.
and then subsided. And
Right.
then in more recent times, you're seeing this third peak, which is like all those Midwestern states, which really, really went out of control.
That's right. And
And that's the scariness when you look at the national figures.
that's
But
right.
I thought, well, we've gone through our weirdness, but then this business
Yeah.
started
Look at that.
happening.
Look at that.
So now, so is this going to just peak and then come down again? We
Oh,
don't know. Is it
yeah.
going to continue to grow? We
Right.
don't know.
Yeah.
All right. But the thing is there's no way of getting around the fact that this is an alarming development.
Right. But
But what do? How do you interpret it? What's the
interpret it
cause?
is that there's people are, even though they're wearing masks, I see them, but I think they're getting together more, or they're doing things. I don't know. I don't know what.
I think, I mean, there are multiple factors, as in
It's
most
getting
things.
colder, so people are inside more.
People are inside more. I think the phrase I've heard a lot, and I think it's very valid, is COVID fatigue.
Fatigue, yeah.
So I'm just as guilty. So in other words, I say, I'm tired. I don't wear rubber gloves when I go out anymore, nor do I think I have to.
I only do it when I go into a supermarket.
And for a while, I only would wear gloves then when I was in a supermarket. Now I don't even do that, right?
Really? Oh, I do.
So am I slacking off of it? Yeah, I am. But I think also there is more understanding about the means of transmission now.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, we were all counting, well, how long does the coronavirus stay intact on cardboard?
Oh,
How's
yeah.
it on aluminum? How is
I
it
know.
on?
I mean, the surface thing
Yeah,
is, and also outdoors. I mean, look at all the rallies that have happened. Look at all.
yeah,
There's been lower especially if you're wearing a mask.
right. So sporting events, schools are back together again. There was part of the Cambridge numbers is attributable to some MIT outbreaks, like especially around the Sloan School. Harvard has actually had increases as well.
So why don't they then differentiate that and say, okay, there's
You have to
44
look.
cases, and these are where they're coming from, rather than saying we're getting worse.
You can actually do some differentiation of it. One of the things that I've been doing, actually, I'm going to just jump back here,
Yeah.
share the screen for a second, is that I've been putting on my site here below the sort of the Cambridge numbers.
Yeah.
There's a page specifically for
Right. Because
on the
the
Harvard
city's
dashboard.
website has that
So
too.
you
You
can,
can go to that on the city's website.
yeah, so you can see, on a
Yeah,
day-by-day basis,
sure.
some new peaking that is
Yeah.
happening there related to Harvard, right? And similarly, you could also do the same thing for MIT. So the
Right.
thing is so some of these spikes, there we go. It's taking its sweet old
Little
time
time.
here, but
So are they
the thing is some of the
they're running
spiking
more
here,
tests. They're running more
they're
tests.
running more tests, but they've been running the tests a lot, pretty much
True.
consistently at MIT and Harvard,
Right.
incredibly so. But
Right.
the thing is that they're actually getting real cases now.
Yeah, that's true. Why
Right.
not?
So there's no getting around it that this is sort of a problem. Now, I've heard Governor Baker's advice basically was saying that, well, people letting their guard down. There's much of the transmission is actually within households.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
basically, somebody goes somewhere, does
You know, you
something.
bring your girlfriend back, and maybe she's been with her family, and you don't know,
Yeah.
but you figure it's safe, and yeah,
Right. Yeah. So how much of this is a matter of people letting your guard down or not? I don't know. I don't know whether this is the appropriate time to mention what happened at the end of the city council
I think
meeting
it
last
is.
night.
Yeah,
Yeah, but what happened there is that, and it was actually kind of emotional.
very
The mayor,
emotional
Mayor
for Mayor
Siddiqui,
Siddiqui. Yeah,
speaking
yeah,
basically because she's been between a rock and a hard place. I
I
mean,
know.
I think listen. You made any one of those 9 councilors mayor, they'd have been over their head, right, for this. I don't think any of them would have been prepared for this, but I don't think she was fully prepared to,
Right.
to sort of
Take this
be in
on
charge of a pandemic in a pandemic. No, who is? Who is?
because she's also the
I would be
chair of the school
terrible.
committee, right? So
Right,
she's
but then
also
yeah.
right.
Now the school committee basically laid down certain rules that say, okay, we're going to reopen more.
Mhm.
Nothing's fully reopening, but
Right.
we're going to reopen more as long as the numbers stay within certain levels, right? And then they established some bounds that I believe were probably based on what they were seeing throughout the summer. And now we're probably just shot past all of those. So what do that mean? Is it going to probably have, let me not say probably, they may have to curtail the reopening plans in some fashion, if not completely. Now, all right. So then there was a city council order. Basically, it was again. I've probably misstated it a little bit, but the basic idea
You're
was
talking about the late order,
it was a late order. It was sprung at the very last second of the council
right?
meeting.
So it wasn't available right then to the public. They couldn't
No,
see it.
no, at all. And basically what it said is, and understandably, the mayor and the vice mayor
Vice mayor. Right.
very emotionally very upset about the fact that they may have to close the
Close
school
the
because
schools.
of the increase in
Yeah.
numbers. But their proposal was, well, the good part, I guess, is the managers should confer with the mayors in the region to sort of come up with a strategic regional plan, for how to address the rising numbers and whatever. Nobody's going to disagree with that. But there was also then suggestions, and I think Councillor Zondervan kind of dogpiled in at the end, basically say we just should shut it down.
Well, not just schools, but everything.
Yeah,
The
just shut down. There
teachers,
was the schools, right? Because they were
students.
basically making a connection here,
Yeah.
saying that, and it was cast as an either or, saying
Yeah.
like, well, if unless you shut down the economy, we can't open the schools. And I just listened to that and I said, I don't see that connection.
No.
And I also don't understand the fact is that if you have, out of a pool of 100 businesses and restaurants, whatever, if 90 of them are doing all the guidelines right,
Yeah.
and they're not really constant, and the data doesn't seem to indicate that they are a cause
Right.
of much of anything,
Right.
why do you want to just shut them down on principle? Because somehow you don't understand something, so therefore you just
Yeah.
basically kill them all. It's so
But you're not going to shut down supermarkets. You're not going to shut down,
right.
and those are essential workers. And I
Yeah.
follow this around the country. People see teachers as essential workers, even though they're very,
Yes.
So it's a very complex issue.
It is a complex
And
issue that doesn't lend itself toward a
no,
broad brush answer.
no,
But many people, myself included, viewed this council order as a very broad brush way
yeah,
of addressing a very real problem.
yeah,
So it was made subject to the charter right by
by
Councilor Toomey,
Toomey,
and now
right.
some people are saying, I can't believe he's going to stand in the way of blah blah
No,
blah blah blah.
it made
But
sense.
I know for a fact that had Councilor Toomey not exercised his charter right, there was at least one and probably 2 or 3 other counselors who are going
They
to
would
do
have
it
done that.
next.
Yeah.
Yes, because it was so late in the game and it
Right.
was so consequential.
Right.
This was not a small matter,
No.
and you're talking about a lot of people in their jobs right now. They're hanging on by a thread and just sort of say, well, we've just decided that's it. Of course, the council can't make that decision. They can recommend to the manager, and the manager shall respond. I suppose if the manager
Yes.
basically tells them all to go screw, they could fire him, but that ain't going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
So, but the thing is that so something will happen. And for those who think because Councilor Toomey exercises his charter right that somehow nothing will happen, they don't understand the way city government really works. The manager has heard, he's aware of every single word in the order, and whatever it is he was going to do in response, he's probably already looking into all of that right now.
And
So
it just comes up next week is what it does.
just, or sooner if they call a special meeting.
Right,
So,
that's true. There was
yeah,
no COVID
that's right. So
agenda item. Yeah.
yeah, now this should be a big item. This should, I agree with every counselor who said that this should be for the foreseeable future, this should be an official part of the city council agenda. Yeah, item number 1 on the manager's agenda, COVID update.
Yeah.
And if they end up working 2 hours on that, all right, fine.
Or have a special meeting.
Or have special meetings on it, because this is serious stuff.
Too important. Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is that I think, elected officials are not elected because they're all brilliant. They are simply there as the people's representatives. It doesn't mean they have any great insight. They're not epidemiologists. They're not medical practitioners. They all they can do is sort of say, well, something's wrong here. We got to figure it out. And that's why we have professional staff. Now, I'm not happy. Now, this is a general criticism I will make about city government and the current city administration. We love to slap ourselves on the back and congratulate ourselves too much. We say, look at our infection rate. It's 0.0000%, and like, therefore everything's right as rain, but,
Wow.
I think it's a good thing that we've done a lot, and we've
done more testing in the city than
we've done very, very well. But the thing is that you shouldn't just sort of let's not pretend when there's a problem, it's emerging. Let's not pretend. It's sort of like, the manager, when he was the budget director, he would always say when we get our new tax bills, he just said, okay, what's the message we can put out there so people feel good? Well, 60% of the people received no more than $100 increase in their tax bill. It was like a well-calculated message to basically say, the train's not running out of control off the rails, and then a few years later, there was an even bigger one. They go, well, only 55% received an increase of less than more than $150. And they always spin it. I just want people to just put it out there. Just put the fact out there and stop the spin. This is a serious matter. This COVID increase now. Let's not let's not pussyfoot around it. It's real. But let's also be very, very, very deliberate in terms of what actions make sense, and they should probably be surgical.
Okay, but what I don't know is when they say they have to close the schools. Right now, it's only to 3rd or 4th grade, and it's only some of the kids. But when was there a date to have like the older kids come back? Before January?
It was coming. It was either happening or
really. Yeah, I didn't think that because
there was already some opening happening, and I still think that there's good sense in opening regardless.
Okay.
But
I do too. Yeah.
But parents have options to say, no, not me. We're staying home.
But also, you do have teachers who are living in communities where their kids maybe aren't in school, so they're stuck too. I mean, so
that's right. That's right.
It's a staffing issue too.
It is definitely so. Yeah. So I'm not again. I don't envy anyone who has to make decisions. I don't envy the school superintendent. I do not envy the position of the mayor to have to adjudicate things in an impossible situation like this. But honesty is something I think most residents will appreciate. Just be straightforward. Let's understand this and be straightforward.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, that was not really even an agenda item at last night's meeting until the very, very bitter end.
Speaking of COVID testing, real quickly, it was brought up in last week's meeting, not this one, that there's all these expanded days now, 7 days a week, but the advertising for it. Now, I walked around East Cambridge on Sunday, and I went by places where they could easily have put signs, like in housing, and I didn't see anything anywhere. And I
Yeah.
think that's wrong. There should be,
You know,
maybe not a mailing, but there could be posters in communities where you want people to have testing, you know?
again, just to sort of add to what I was just saying earlier, is that
Yeah,
we do a great job of pretending we're doing everything perfectly.
yeah,
And I think we do things pretty well, but
yeah.
we do fall flat on certain things. Getting that word around generally. Again, if we were one of these, like a suburban community that had the weekly
Yeah.
bargain paper or something that everybody read, you could get word out to people very effectively. We only do it in a kind of a scattershot way. I mean, we're actually in some ways dependent on things like neighborhood listservs and other
Yeah,
things to
I mean, I
sort of,
went by the Margaret Fuller house. I went by places where there were places you could have just put a poster. I don't get it. I mean,
I agree,
I
and it's
signed
not
up for
like,
a test. I don't even want a test, but my daughter made me get one because we're going, just with four of us, whatever. So
right.
I signed up for one that I have to
Yeah.
drive into, which I'm surprised there wasn't the car people that don't want cars. You could only drive into the Cambridge Site Gallery. You can't walk in. You can't use a bicycle. But
Right.
so I thought that was interesting. Not
Well,
that
I mean, the thing is, part of that, I think, is that there's a certain type of person who,
mm.
when they go to good testing, they don't want to get out of a car and they don't want to see people outside of cars. They want to say, let's all show up in
Well, it
our
was also
bubbles.
easier for you. I don't know. There's the site at Church Street. I don't know how that one's run. Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
Anyway.
I mean, so nobody should misunderstand me. I'm
Yeah.
grateful for all the things that
No,
Cambridge is
I understand what
doing,
you're saying. I
and
know,
I
but
think
we have
we've
to
been doing
stop.
great
Yeah.
things.
I know.
But the thing is, but
Yeah.
we don't do things perfectly, and let's stop pretending when we're doing them perfectly.
Oh,
Let's
yeah. Okay.
acknowledge when
All right.
we
We
did a
got
pretty
like
good job. Pretty
we have
good is sometimes pretty good.
5 minutes left, which isn't enough time, but
All right.
we both watched, and you actually commented on a meeting today about, it was the Government Operations Committee
Yeah.
to
All right.
talk
So
about social. Yeah, go ahead. You can.
yeah, so they had a number of things on their agenda. The way the chair Denise Simmons
Denise
spoke of
Simmons,
it is about decorum amongst
yeah,
counselors, but it was very specifically also about city council aides.
yes, the
Uh,
history of them and
yeah, and
their
I thought
actions, I
they
guess.
actually did put a history of like how
Yeah,
these come to be. But the truth is it's the counselors just sort of, they like having this personal benefit of having like a personal, you know somebody to sort of handle their little affairs like this here. But I've been outspoken for a very long time
yeah.
about this, and that I've never thought that was necessary, and I didn't
Mm-hmm.
think it was the right way to do business.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that, and again, because I remember talking to the counselors when they were first exploring these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is actually rooted in the fact that certain people who got to be vice mayor got an aide, and other counselors were resentful. So therefore, we
That's
want to
where it
have
all
them too.
started. Yeah. Okay.
There was
All right.
also a period of time when several city councilors were considering seeking other political offices, and they weren't going to be around as much because they're going to be campaigning. So they wanted people to be kind of stand-ins. That
Oh.
never made it into the press, but that was
Hmm.
absolutely a fact.
This is the 90s, late
Uh,
90s.
Really kind of after the 90s, right?
Okay.
Early 2000s. But then what really then happened, it was actually then it was one person who was vice mayor who got an aide and who really exploited it and kind of almost rubbed it in the faces of all the other counselors. So they were saying like, we're not happy about this. So then it was when Mayor Reeves got the 5 votes to become mayor. I think was at 2005, after the 2005 election. I'm not sure. That he just by fiat, and I'm sure it was an understanding amongst those who voted for him, make me mayor and you'll get your aides. And he did. They got his aides.
But
So
they
there was
called them research assistants.
they called them research assistants, and then they got their aides, and they were supposed to be very much part-time. But then over the years, it grew, to up to a 30-hour week. And even in the FY21 budget, it's actually listed as full-time, except that it's not being funded because the money is being diverted for COVID reasons.
I don't think people even realize what
No,
the
they don't know
salary
about
would
these
be
things.
if this gets passed. It's going to be $62,000 or
It's
something,
it's
plus
crazy.
benefits.
And as I like to point
Yeah.
out, the Plan E charter hasn't changed
Yeah.
essentially since 1941.
Mm.
The job description of a city councilor hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So
Which is supposed to be a part-time position.
it is supposed to be, and ideally should be.
Yeah,
Right?
but then, why are you having a full-time? Are they the people? It's just so crazy.
It's
So against
ridiculous. And the truth is, without naming names, the
it.
aides of some city councilors have
Mhm.
been engaging in things that are really crossing the line.
Yeah.
You know, there was a former city councilor, I don't know if I mentioned this at the committee meeting, who somebody actually went and sent up an aide for a city councilor browbeating department head, which
Yeah.
if it was a
We did
councilor
see
doing
that.
that, that's a felony.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, there is some problems with this whole structure here. So
And they fall under the city. I mean, they can be removed by the city manager, right?
right, there's
It's
one
up to
city
the city
councilor
council.
today that they
Yeah.
are city employees just like
Yeah.
anybody else. There was one city councilor today,
Yeah.
Sabrina Wheeler, who basically is saying, well,
Yeah.
they should be accountable only to us.
Yeah.
In other
Yeah.
words, wait a
Yeah.
minute. In other words, if you have your aide does something dreadful, as long
Mhm.
as you're okay with it, then I should continue, my tax money should continue to fund them. Are you kidding me? You know, so my alternative proposal for years and years and years was that we should just basically beef up the staff of city council committees.
Absolutely.
And if you are chair of that committee, then you have access to this staff support.
Research assistant.
And then you actually will beef up the function of the council committees to
And
do
it's not
the job of the
right. It's
council.
not just trying to promote your individual, council.
These are patronage positions from day one, with some wonderful exceptions.
Yeah.
For the most part, these are people who have worked in people's political campaigns and continue to do so in municipal election years.
Behind the scenes.
Let's not fool around about it. So
okay, we have like 15 seconds.
that's about it. So
yeah.
anyway,
more on that. And there's a meeting tomorrow that I'm going to watch on municipal broadband.
That's another topic. It's a hot topic and an interesting topic and a topic worth discussion.
All right. Good night,
See y'all
everybody.
soon on Cambridge Inside Out.